Welcome, 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 welcome to the Ultimate Landscape CEO podcast. Was that enough welcomes? Our guest today is Ivan Katz, Great Lakes Landscape Design, established 35 years ago in 1989. He's going to come on and tell you his revenue, but close to 10 million. And he has a single location, Oak Park, Michigan. He just moved to tell you about that. This is a great guy. He received our Mighty Oak Award that we hand out to a few clients, peer group members every year. And he was sort of the star of the show a bit. He was very charismatic when we gave him the award, and he was very inspiring, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. Ivan is a very loyal person, and it got tested when he got embezzled for a large amount of money. He takes us through that and how he had to put up boundaries and then put up good systems and then learn to trust people again. He talks about the bonds he builds also with his immigrant staff, his labor, and how he goes to Mexico with them to really learn from them in their shoes. And he treats all of his employees this way, investing in them. We'll talk about how he does that and the kind of loyalty it's engendered. And we talk about his value systems, the one with swear words and the one without swear words. You'll learn about all that. We talk about a big accident that happened to him about 10 years ago and how it didn't have the overnight impact you might expect, but I think it got the ball rolling. And his main role has been in sales. And so we talk a lot about the sales management, the sales manager he just hired, pulling himself out of sales. He's a very giving guy. He talks about a lot of different tools and systems he uses as well. You're really going to love this podcast. And I have a little surprise. They made it an executive decision during this podcast, which you will hear about. By the way, if you're new to my world, you can visit me at jeffreyscott.biz. You can join my newsletter, which you can sign on right there on my homepage of my website. And we send out interesting and useful tactics and techniques for landscape owners and leaders every week through my Growth Tips newsletter. So sign on for that if you haven't. Here comes Ivan. Ivan Katz, welcome to the big show.
Thanks for having me, Jeffrey.
So you and I have known each other for what, 4 years now, maybe?
Yeah,
more?
We're working on 4 years. I did the first financials master class. It would have been 2020.
Yeah.
So January of 2020.
You gave me a really good interviewing. I was getting interviewed for sure when we were talking. But enough about me for the time being. Let's talk about you. Tell the audience who you are, what your current company is, what it does.
So Ivan Katz, Great Lakes Landscape Design. I founded the company in 1989. This is our 35th year in business. Started with a Malibu Classic and a rebuilt motorcycle trailer and a few $100. Today we identify as a design, build, maintenance firm. We also do commercial snow removal in the wintertime. We are currently just over 50 staff, and we're hoping to be around 60 in the next month or two. Revenue, we are roughly around 7.8 million last year.
Roughly 7.8. What about this year?
This year, we're projecting 9.8.
Okay. Adding 2 big ones.
Yes.
So when I met you, you told me about this embezzlement that happened, which I really, by the way, it happens to a lot of people. You are by no means the only one at all. It happens to far too many people to count. But, some it's small, others it's big. And for you, it had a big impact on you. You want to share that story?
Yeah. And I know it's not unique to me. I make sure to talk about it because nobody should really ever have to go through that. Kind of like the white car. You buy a white car, all of a sudden you see white cars everywhere. So
Yeah.
when you start talking about it with people, oh yeah, this happened to me, it happened to me. For me, it was what we discovered was over $250,000. And that doesn't include probably charges and stuff like that were done and paid. Really, that is a lot of money. It was devastating, but I think more so I had gotten to a point where I was like, okay, I'm not cut out for business. I was on the verge of shutting everything down, and then went home and did this forensic audit with my mother-in-law, and I found the pattern, and we determined what it was. And then all of a sudden I said, well, hang on a minute. I actually have a decent business, but somebody's picking my pocket. So, I spent a few years not trusting anyone. And then a friend of mine through an entrepreneurial organization, EO, introduced me to this woman who still works for me today. And I was able to trust her. And then I also put in a lot of controls that really made a huge difference in terms of, anyone being able to fraudulently take advantage of the company. So a lot of controls in place.
Yeah. And somebody you can trust. So you in 250 embezzlement that you found could have been more. Uh, was that like all your profit that year?
Oh, it happened over a couple of years. So yeah, it was everything.
Yeah.
I'd gotten to the point where I wasn't even taking a salary
Mm.
or just keeping the lights on. And that's how I discovered it. I had let the person go, and then really quickly figured out oh my God, I found a missing check, found out she was counterfeiting signing. And then I really quickly, had this sinking feeling in my gut. And that was when within an hour, I had found about 35 grand figured out. And then I did the forensic audit and found the rest of it,
Did this
which
person
was
go to
crazy.
jail?
Yes. So that was an ordeal. So the minimum sentencing laws for somebody, once you embezzle over 25,000, is 0 to 9 months. So my belief is, had she not fled the state, she literally fled. She may not have done any time. She has since left this earth.
Mm.
So I knew I was never going to see my money back. At the time, I didn't have insurance for that. So it's not a given. Not all insurance companies have employee dishonesty. So I have that now. And I have several other, banking protocols in place, checks and balances, background checks for people that are doing things. And, banking programs nowadays are pretty cool. So you can't add a vendor without I get an email personally. You can't enter a payroll person without me knowing about it. So it really kind of reduces it down. And it's not just for me. You have to protect the other people that are handling that kind of sensitive information. Like I
Yeah.
won't even leave my office and leave my computer on, because if I do, then I'm not, the banks won't cover you for fraud because you didn't properly protect your information.
And you're doing it for that, and for your team. It's like a team commitment.
Correct. Yeah. And it
You
works.
are you a loyal person? Because you have some long-standing employees. What's that due to?
The longstanding employees, I like to think it's about loyalty. Um, I think it's the environment that we've created here, the trust that I put in people. So for a while, it was very hard for me to trust, but I had to learn there are just certain things you do not need to trust people with. And once I figured out that difference, I think that it was a lot easier for me to operate. And then, as a result, I've got people that have been here as long as 21 years.
Yeah, it's a long time. You go every winter to Mexico to visit what, your top ops guy or your top foreman?
So Hector's my longest standing employee, and I've had the good fortune to go with him The last couple of years we've gotten kind of canceled, but we have gone and traveled and visited the homes of the different people, and a lot of that was for me was just to try to understand um, where the people that work for me come from, what's important to them, seeing where they live, how they live, what the environment's like. Not the touristy areas of Acapulco, but the smaller pueblos. I was down in a town called Maravatillo, sitting in the town square with Hector and a couple other former employees, and three or four other people kind of rode their bikes into the town square and, hey, Hefe, like, what's going on? And it was kind of cool. We got invited to dinners, um, ate like kings. They had parties, and I went and picked peanuts in the field to see what that was all about, vegetables and stuff like that, and just kind of went to all kinds of different towns from their perspective to get a better understanding of who they are, what makes them work, why they come to work on a daily basis. It was really enlightening for me. I definitely enjoyed myself.
So your investment in your people's got to be part of that loyalty, right? That whether it's spoken or unspoken, um, that it's a big deal what you just told us, and it's exciting and it's interesting and it's even a bit out of the box. You're not the only one, but not many do what you do. And I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg
Yeah,
at
I
your
mean, I
company.
try to open myself up so that if they have any questions, we've done a few coffees with Ivan, we call them, where we wake up early in the morning. I'm here early, and they can come in and ask me any questions that they want. So I've had a few people come in, younger guys looking to buy houses, you know, show up with a credit card and say, how do I use this? And we just kind of quickly go over the use of a credit card as a financial instrument to help build credit when they don't have credit and they want to buy a house. So we have been working on stuff like that. I had to interview questions, sat down with as many people as I could. That was last 2 years ago, asking them a series of 20 questions and then allowing them to ask me any questions that they want. So the rules of engagement are simple. You can ask me anything you want, and I'll answer to the best of my ability. So I think there's a lot of things like that, and just being embracing that whole thing. It really actually quite simple. Just come in and be a cheerleader, smile, be happy, um, and walk around and learn a little bit about the people that work for you. And one of the favorite things I like to say is people don't come to work to do a shitty job. They just want to come to work. We spend a lot of time here. We've had these conversations in our peer group as well, where it's like, what is it? What are they coming here? What are they leaving at home?
Mm,
What is their experience at home versus here? And this may be the most exciting place and time of their day.
yeah.
So how do you tap
I'm just as you're talking, I'm just thinking about uh, other examples of how much I know you invest in your people. You bring probably more employees than anyone to our Summer Growth Summit. You definitely have the record for the most strategic planning events we've done together. And they've shifted from being strategic planning to, career planning and people development, where we focus just as much attention on your people, you know, both what you need from them to hit the strategic plan, but also helping them see their blind spots, what do they need to do to step up? Um, and it's a lot. It's a lot of dedication that you have to them to help them see their potential or fulfill it.
right? It's part of our core value, honesty, integrity, respect, and education. And we have, over the last year, 3 years especially, committed a significant amount of time, energy, and dollars to education. So we are
I
bringing 12 people again this year to the summit.
Yeah. I had to do some mental uh ABCs while you were talking. So your values stand for hire, HIRE. There you go.
No, that's just one. And you gave me a hard time about the acronym, and it's just one of my core values. And yet there are several other companies out there who their whole list of core values is an acronym in and of itself. But we just have the one, uh, and it works for us. And I think, listen, that's something that I had to learn. You get into the peer group system, and this person's doing that, and this person's doing that, and you're going to try that, but not. Then you got to back up and say, well, wait a minute. What works for them may not work for us.
Yeah.
This metric may work great for them, but they're a slightly different company. So sifting through and understanding what definitely works and what doesn't. But I told you, yeah, it's higher. I don't know if you remember that, but I stuck with it. It works here. Everybody likes it. We do check ourselves. So we follow EOS. And so every quarter we go through and we read our VTO and we make sure we still like them and that we don't need any changes or anything like that. And
So
that one has stood the test of time.
what about your customer service ethic? You want to share that one?
That you mean the bracelet?
Yeah, the bracelet.
The bracelet. So internally, we all know that we rally around. Basically, we get shit done, and this was through one of our largest residential client. And her comment to me was, you know why we like you so much? Because when we call you, you just get shit done, right? Like everyone else, it's like, well, it's this or it's that, and you're always just like, okay, I can handle that. We'll get that done for you. So we've taken it, and we're trying to live that ethos of like, let's just get it done. Like at the end of the day, just get it done, because the
I
rest
love it.
doesn't matter.
Some people pick aspirational values. I'd like to be more like fill in the blank. And for you guys, you live and breathe it. You just had to come up with a name for it.
Right. And we got it from the client.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we can learn so much from our clients if we're humble enough and slowed down enough to listen to them.
Yeah, we've done a couple focus groups. We've committed to doing at least one a year, and we've gotten valuable information. And the truth is, you already know what your issues are. They're going to highlight them. They're going to, confirm what you already know. But it is good to hear. And I think, like anything else, it's always better if it comes from someone else than the owner of the company.
Yeah,
That's it 100%. So we learn from our clients, and then we learn from going different places. So I recently joined the Detroit Athletic Club, and I'm seeing what world-class service is really like.
They have a
So
great cigar bar. I just want to say that.
yes, they do. And I'm still trying to figure out the whole place, but nothing is for nothing there, but it feels like, oh my God, I feel so great. I feel I'm being serviced to the hilt, that the staff is so friendly and so nice that I don't even question the cost because there's value there. And I
Yeah.
think that's a huge lesson, because we're
Also,
not trying to sell. What's that?
sorry. Go ahead. Also, for you as a salesperson, because if you can internalize that, now you know how your clients think.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's incredibly important. Their communication is amazing. Because every month it's okay. We just need your customer number, Mr. Katz, and we're going to put that right on your account. So,
It adds up.
and how about this one? This is epic, I think. They have a board in the lobby for new members that are being proposed for admittance, so that if you'd like to write them a letter of support, you can write them a letter of support. And then on the other side of the page, it lists the people who are 30 days past due, 60 days past due, 90 days past due, and terminated. for failure to pay.
Mm.
So wouldn't that be interesting if you could publicly shame clients for not paying?
That's a whole
Could you
different
imagine?
podcast.
We're pretty fortunate. We don't have too much of that going on. So I mean, I think it's something that we work really hard at is collections and stuff like that. So
Yeah. Hey, last year you won the Mighty Oak, which we nominate and pick someone from each peer group, and I had a few of you on stage at the Summer Growth Summit of the Mighty Oak winners from last year, and you seemed to have the most to say. Maybe you were the most magnetic up there. Not the only one, but you. I think you definitely caught people's attention. Is that who you've always been? Was that situational? Um, is that how you are at work? What was going on there on stage? Was that just in the moment, or because you're a low key guy? If I go into one of our peer group meetings, you'll be talking, but it's not like you'll own the room. But you definitely own the stage that day. What was going on?
I don't know. I just was in my element. I was prepared. I like to speak in front of a lot of people. Um, we've talked about this. Our mission statement is transforming spaces and lives using nature and innovative design. And my personal mission is just to change people's lives in any way that I can. So I just kind of feel like it's an obligation to give back. And when you're up there and you're in front of a lot of people, it's just being candid, being vulnerable. And I think that's a lot of what it is. I've been through, I always tell people I have a title for my book. It's What Could Go Wrong. And I have no secrets. I'm just pretty transparent. And I think that that's just a quality that goes a long way. People can relate to that. I mean, that was a lot of the feedback that I got. So,
Yeah,
I enjoy it. I mean, to me, it's just fun to be able to connect with other people and then inspire them and impact them and, try and figure out how you can make them get more out of people.
yeah. I like that. That's a great answer. You didn't expect that question, so that's an excellent answer. It's your obligation and it's your personal mission.
Yeah,
I love that.
very much
Hey,
so.
before I met you, I think you also told me that you had a sort of a big accident and it sidelined you from work. That was actually 10 years ago, right? Or
Yeah,
11.
2013, June
And
28th,
how did that change?
8:30 in the morning.
What happened and how did that change your business?
So, so I was on a training ride. I was out riding with 6 other guys. We were training for Ironman racing, doing a long ride, probably an 80-mile ride. We were about halfway, and the guy in front of me stood up, out of his arrow position to take a drink, and I was right behind him looking behind me to see where the guys behind me were because I was going to go outside around him. So right at the same time, and I caught his wheel. I was probably riding around 23 miles an hour, and you have like 1 second to make a decision. It's take out the person in front of you, which is rarely going to happen. Go to the right, which there were 36-inch kelp oak trees and an 8-inch curb. So that didn't seem like a good idea. Or try to correct on the left outside. So I did that and basically went horizontal and landed straight on my hip and broke the femoral neck in my hip.
Yikes.
And I was with one of the guys I was with is a orthopedic surgeon. And then one of the guys was on the phone with his brother, who's an orthopedic surgeon, and they're yelling, they don't do surgery in Dexter's. So they took me to Ann Arbor Hospital. So I kind of knew at that point it was a problem. But they called ahead, and the head of trauma surgery took me in, and he's the one that did my surgery. So basically, that was at 8:30. At 9:30, I was being operated on. So what it changed was 2 weeks after the surgery, we were saying to people, well, is your site flat or hilly? Because I was the only salesperson. So I was literally working 2 weeks after I was on crutches, going to sales meetings, and kind of having to deal with all that. So that was like a pretty huge wake up call, um, because there was nobody else to pick up the slack. So I was kind of beholden to come back and deal with that. Is kind of get back into the grind right away. So
So how did it change your approach to business, or did it not?
I think I don't think it really took hold for like within the next 2 years. I did have, like in 2014, I hired a salesperson. I was able to hire someone. 2015, we added a second salesperson. So there were three of us. And then things started to grow. We had some growth then. I think we almost doubled. We went from like 1.6 to just over 3 million. But then the next few years until right around the time we hired you was where we were just kind of stuck, because we lose one, gain one, lose one. So to the point where I was heavily responsible, even more so now, probably 90% of sales. Last year I was 60% of our sales, and we're trying to get that down to 30% of sales in the next year, and then from there get it to the point where I am not in sales anymore. So it
It,
is still an issue.
it's an issue for an interesting reason, which I want to add here. It's an issue because you have pulled yourself out of the business to a good extent. You're spending more time in the community. You're meeting great clients, and then they're attracted to you, and so you're attracting these even larger sales. And so, uh, while you probably don't have the original clients from X years ago, or your sales aren't those small sales, but it's your success, your charisma, your just that vibe you put out, and the relationships you build, and this success is getting in your way of pulling yourself out of sales.
Right. So we just hired a sales manager about, I think it's been 2.5 months. And she has come in, and here's what I think the real issue is: not just me, because I'm definitely part of it, which is
Yeah,
not uncommon, but it's really honing in on the processes. She has tweaked our presentation process substantially. Um, so she's working on those kinds of things, because that's her background. Came from a completely different industry.
yeah,
So what we brought her in strictly to run the sales department, not sell.
yeah,
So now we're looking at the sales process. We're tweaking it. It's not that we didn't have these things, but we're refining them. Production rates, really trying to razor sharpen these production rates so that we can bring anyone in, even somebody without any landscape experience, and we can get them rolling. Um, so right now, all I do is essentially is I'm taking either overflow, because we want to get people in as quick as we can with the way the market is today. We don't want people to wait. If they call this week, we want to be meeting with them next week.
yeah.
We don't want them to wait more than a week. So I take any of those added meetings, and then all my what I call my top 10 clients. So those are people that they just continuously come back. And then we've added in an account manager, and I have finally handed off all the account management for these top 10 people to him. and we're continuously working on that. So that's relieved me like significantly. So last year last year we did that, and I only went on 82 proposals, and I still sold more than I've ever sold. So really, really high quality leads. And then the next step is, okay, now we can. I was having this conversation about when we design our sales staff, we're going to do it like the same concept with our fleet. So for our fleet, we said for construction crews, we want 550s, I boxes, tarp systems, 4-door, white cab, and then the dumps are stainless steel. We need a plow, we need a salt spreader, and our maintenance crews are going to be in an Isuzu cab over. So now the question is okay, who's the next salesperson we need? Steve is leaving in 2 years. I need to take a back seat and work more on business development. So what does that person look like? And then if we want to grow our commercial maintenance, is there somebody that's more geared towards selling maintenance? So really kind of looking at it as a different thing. Even the demographics. So the demographics of the clients that we're drawing. If we bring in a different salesperson, what do they draw? What community do they pull their sales from versus the community that I pull from? So being a member of the Jewish community, I have a very large Jewish clientele. Now that I'm part of the DAC, I can go after non-Jewish people because I'll be exposed to more of those people. So what are some of the other demographics and markets that I'm missing because it's not part of my current sphere of influence?
Dude, what do you need? A Baptist salesperson and a
Yeah.
Catholic salesperson?
Yeah, I think it's more like spheres of influence. Like what circles are people running in that I'm not running in that will open us up to more opportunities? Because as we grow, I know we can grow more organically. We're working hard on marketing, and we've been working hard since October. It's not something that we did much of at all before then.
Yeah.
It was just kind of this idea, and my degree was in marketing.
It's
So
interesting that
now,
you get to 10 million based on relationships, one sale at a time. That's, not non-commercial relationships. That's not easy to do.
I think it's easier than we think, though.
Well, it's easier for you, and so you know how to uh, replicate that dynamic, I think.
It is, but how do I teach that to the next person? And how do
Well,
we create that in a
you
scalable model?
listen, you hired a sales manager, and that's a whole great topic on its own. I remember that conversation last year, but you got to give her that problem, right? She should be the one. I think it's a she, right? She should be the
Yes.
one that helps you create that solution. But just as a sidebar, I remember talking 1 or 2 years ago, and we said, man, the only way you're going to pull yourself out of sales is to pull yourself out of sales management first.
Right.
And I know that you didn't really have it in the budget. And I remember asking you, Ivan, can we take this out of your personal income or, whatever, out of discretionary cash flows and go get this person? And you said, yep, let's do it. Let's do it now. And so and that was what, 6 months ago, a year ago, we had that conversation, or
Yeah.
you got committed to it. Was that the right thing to do?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, we committed hard at this year's annual meeting, and I mean, I'm happier because everybody's happier. Meaning, our meetings are more productive. We made the commitment, and the Alexis has made the changes that were necessary, and we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not that we didn't have good stuff in place. It needs work. So maybe we need to get all that in line before we can push. So we're looking to hire our next salesperson in June July timeframe. um, because that's where we feel, we've got to replace not only my sales, but Steve, who's sold around 2 million a year for the last 2 years. So he's going to be leaving in 2 years. So I've got to replace all that revenue. So, but having all the right parts in place in order to be able to do it is what's critical. And listen, she knows she's better at managing people. That's not my strength. I know how to motivate them. I know how to mentor. I like to think that I can get the most out of people and help them find what they're truly capable of. And, it goes back to why do I think people are so loyal? Because I really think that I hopefully give them the confidence that they need to go out and just succeed and do what it is that they're capable of doing.
That's awesome. So how do you think you're the question is, can you teach people to be relationship based salespeople like you are? Uh, or do you have to hire them? What's your take on that?
So I think it's something you can hire. I think people either have that skill or they don't have that skill.
Yeah.
I think there's things that we now are looking at. We just are working with the culture index to try and look at some of that for looking at people on the front end before we hire,
Yeah.
kind of like the Winslow. But if we have the ideal candidate in the profile, there's a lot of analytics behind it that will help us to figure out, what that right skill set is. So really, we've just spent a lot of time, like I got drilled down, like, why do you think you're able to do that? And with the people of this caliber, it's you got to be relentless. You have to have a very high endurance score. You have to understand that you've got to be aggressive. You can't back down. You've got to really go hard with them with what they need. Make sure that you're responsive. Make sure you're communicating on the rhythms that they want, because it's not typically about the cost. It's about the results. And so they're just results oriented. They want you to make their lives easier. And then they also want you to understand what it is about them that they need. So that's where the relationship part comes in, and, be able to have open and honest conversations. These are extremely successful people. So
As you're talking, I'm also thinking about commercial. How much does that, what you just told us, help you succeed in commercial sales?
I struggle with commercial sales because a lot of commercial sales are transactional. Get a
Mm,
management company, you're here, I'm the new manager, I've got my own guy, you're gone. My
yeah.
guy leaves, goes to a new place. Maybe I keep my account, but I go with him. So now I'm his guy.
Mm,
Um, so personally, I struggle. It doesn't fit my personality. It doesn't fit my sales techniques.
yeah.
There's no enduring relationship. So, like when we talk about building the sales staff like a fleet, I need somebody who knows how to build those types of relationships. It's not a strength of mine. I know how to find the opportunities through the people that I know or contacts that I know. It's then trying to figure out a model where we can keep people. I
Well,
can
you
tell you,
just said you keep, you just told us you keep the person, but not the property.
correct.
Yeah. 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 Well, it depends if we're talking HOA or commercial, but you know, I just made an executive decision while we're talking here, Ivan. Normally, I would interview someone all the way to the very end. It'd be a super long Joe Rogan type podcast. But I think what we're going to do is I have a couple more questions for you, but then I'm going to have you back because I know there's more to talk about on topics we had not even touched yet. So you're the first one of my new style here, where I'm just going to have you back, and we're going to talk about some things that you and I know we could really dive into within your company. Let me ask you though, sort of off the cuff, you've been coaching with me for a few years now. You've been in the peer group for a couple of years. Give us a off the cuff testimonial on that.
So I just think it's, for me, having a coach, I'd never had a coach. So people, and I think being able to bounce off ideas and then have somebody really hold me accountable. I think that was something, you know, that you did. I responded very well to. Like, I'd prep and then we'd get on a call and I felt like, okay, I got it all ready. And then you would just ask me all these questions and I didn't have the answers. And it drove me nuts to not be able to answer the questions. So I think learning that and coming to be prepared and then getting to the point where you were like, I had all the answers for you. That was great. And it rolled all the way down to, like, last year we moved and we had to buy a building. And when I tell you that I got through the process in like 2 months, within when the banker started asking me for information and financials, we had everything to him within like an hour. Everything. Our VTO, our financials, our rolling budget, everything that he could possibly want. And he was blown away. So I knew at that point that we had really dialed in, and that was one of the biggest reasons we hired you was, the financials. And so being able to benchmark against some other companies also goes back to the same concept of it's not coming from me. If I say to my team, in 2020, I went to them and I said, we suck. Look at our numbers compared to everyone else's. I'm done. Like, literally, look at how we compare. So how can that be disputed? So what is it that we're not doing that we should be doing? And let's take a good, honest look at it, because it's no fun otherwise. When you're not really making money, you think but you have to know. And I think there are still things we're trying to figure out, but with the peer group, we're not alone. So I can put out a request. I was on our trio this morning, and people ask a simple question and they get 2 to 3 answers. Sometimes they're consistent, but an opportunity to understand how somebody else is doing it. It's like getting your master's. I wasn't the greatest student. So for me, I learn more by talking, doing, seeing, and more practical ways like that. And that's what the peer group has offered me. So a group of 18 now we're in our group. And not only that, but last week I had drinks with 2 other people in Michigan that are in your greater peer group system. And we just had a great conversation. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for you to be able to break the learning curve. If you need a job description, there's some validation. Yeah, I'm not the only one doing that. That kind of thing, or I'm not the only one dealing with it, because, there's power in numbers. So getting that feedback from everybody's great.
And you're a great giver. So I think people love giving to you. When I've got somebody who's struggling with a build and move in season, Ivan, you're on the speed dial.
Right.
You want to do something crazy like that? Call Ivan. He'll tell you how to do it.
Right. Oh, we did it. That was amazing.
So you had drinks. What were you drinking, Ivan?
Oh, I had a non-alcoholic beer. Like I say, I'm a retired professional.
Yeah.
So,
hey, listen, this has been great. I'm going to have you back, maybe with Des together for the next podcast. And we'll dive into some other things going on in your business there. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you as a person, man. You're just a great client. Pleasure to work with. Any final thoughts for someone listening? Some lesson that you made long ago that you still remember and make use of today that you want to share some parting thoughts?
So I think the biggest thing that sticks with me on a daily basis, even as we're growing right now, is you need to run your company now like it's as big as it's ever going to be, because it's so hard to undo. Well, I did this for that person, and no, we have to think about, we have 50 people now, but what about when we have 150 people? So I think that to me is it's just being proactive instead of reactive.
Mm,
The whole concept of the future accountability chart, it
yeah,
really, we talk about these things, but do you really understand them? If you
yeah,
don't know where you're going, how are you really going to get there?
right. So if by future accountability chart, show today what you're going to look like in 3 years, make decisions today with that as your north, your true north.
Yep. Your true north. And it's always going to change. I had a client once ask me, when is enough enough? And I said, I don't have the answer to that, because the truth is, I really don't know what my end game is yet. That's can be on some discussions for a future podcast.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
really try to figure that out.
I thought you meant when is enough landscaping enough? I thought your client asked you that. Hey, Ivan, I've
Oh,
bought
there's
enough
never
landscaping
enough
from you.
landscape.
Yeah.
There's never enough.
Oh, I wanted to say something. No, I forgot. But oh yeah. So proactive, I think it's hard for people to be proactive when they're in the moment, go, 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 go. But what I'm taking from what you just said, when you're about to make a decision, stop and think ahead 3 years, a couple years, the next growth step, and then try to make the decision today with that in mind.
That's right. Because if we do that, it saves a lot of headaches, I think,
Yeah.
down the line. By
It's
the
the
way, it's
whole,
easier said than done.
yeah, right. It's the whole important versus urgent. Urgent feels better today, but the problems stack up.
And preference versus priority. So
We'll make that your final thought. Please explain.
that was came from Mike Haynes, and that was helpful for me. So when I having conversations with people, if I say to someone, this client wants me to do this, the tendency was people would drop everything else they're doing and just go do it. And so now what I've tried to do is say, this is what they would like, but it is not a priority for you today. It's my preference that you get it done. Here's my preference, but this one's a priority. So really kind of getting into what you're asking people and making sure that they're clear, what's a priority, what's just a preference. I would prefer that you don't handle it this way, or it's a priority that you handle it this way, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one. Ivan, this has been awesome. We're going to see you soon. And thanks for sharing. And I've just committed. We're having you back.
Okay, sounds good.